Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Connect 2, episode 3. And the topic for today is, has the thought of quitting ever crossed your mind? As we all know, the Connect 2 YouTube channel is basically a channel which promotes entrepreneurship and which encourages people about entrepreneurship. So today our guest is Mr. Peter Kamlongera, who is the young founder and director for Fast Fluency Africa. Hope you enjoy.
Okay,
Peter, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Peter. So, Peter, do tell us about yourself. Who is Peter and what does he do?
Okay, so I'm a pretty simple guy, pretty chilled out. So I'm currently studying, finishing my final degree, which is an LLB.
Wow.
And at the same time, as you said, I'm the founder and director of Fast Fluency Africa.
Okay, awesome stuff. So, Peter, please do tell us more about what is Fast Fluency Africa. I mean, like, we keep on hearing Fast Fluency. What does it do? What is it?
Okay, so Fast Fluency Africa is effectively the fun way to learn languages.
Mm-hmm.
And we pride ourselves on figuring out different ways to include good food and drinks in our methods.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we can come up with a way to teach you a language as a side benefit to giving you a platform where you can learn more about the African culture. Because our main unique selling point is the fact that we specifically focus on African languages and African culture. Because you find that there's a lot of different information and language learning services when it comes to Romanic languages, whether it's Spanish, whether it's Portuguese or French or Italian. But then when you now look for services when it comes to African languages, you can find resources on YouTube if you want to find a few like videos for different phrases.
Mm-hmm.
You can't find free online dictionaries that give you like the actual definitions of different words if you're looking for basic things, whether it's Sesotho or if it's isiZulu, for example. And even beyond that, it's hard for you to find what's very important when you're learning a language, access to grammar material, so that you can actually learn the rules for the different languages. Because when anyone wants to learn languages, there are two elements that they need to have. They need to have access to vocabulary and they need to have access to the rules, which is the grammar.
Okay.
But most importantly, what anyone in the language space will agree with is that the most important requirement for you to learn a language as quickly as possible is to be exposed to native speakers.
Oh, okay.
So we really double down on that element. So that's where the fun element comes in.
Okay.
So our sessions, how they're structured, is not like your conventional language learning school where it's formalized classes and it feels like you have to take a module as if you're in varsity or you're at a school level. How we do it is very informal and colloquial. We want our clients to really feel like when you're having your sessions, you're more than anything chatting to a friend who's just guiding you along your language learning journey. And then with the other elements that we also provide, we organize different events that allow for people to come and meet native speakers. So it's really focusing on the fun and trying to create access to African culture and African languages from a creative and fun and interactive perspective.
Okay. So you're saying to me right now, if I want to learn Swahili, I should call Fast Fluency Africa?
You should call us up, because even though currently we're primarily focusing on all 12 official languages in South Africa.
Okay.
And I say 12 because we include South African Sign Language in that.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah. So if you come to us and you specifically want to learn another African language, even if we're not currently offering it, we'll find someone who can teach you that language.
Oh, okay.
One way or another, because we're also coming from the perspective where we want to be the most efficient and effective way to facilitate the process for you. Because we want to be the middleman in between that process. Because something like a language is something that is readily accessible, but it's difficult as an individual to find the people who have the skill. So we do that labor for you, and we find the individuals who have the skill, who are native mother tongue speakers, and then we now facilitate the process of guiding you on that journey.
Oh, okay. So basically what you're saying to me right now is you're primarily focused on the 12 languages in South Africa.
Yes.
But if I want to learn Swahili or German or whatever language that's outside of South Africa, you're saying you will be able to, you guys do cater for those services and you'll be able to assist someone.
Yeah, but obviously it's all based on demand.
Oh, okay.
Because we're not going to actively go out of our way to now find a Kiswahili facilitator, for example, because actually that's something a lot of people don't know. Swahili is the same as calling someone who's Zulu isiZulu, as opposed to calling them Zulu. So Swahili is the tribe, and Kiswahili is a language.
Kiswahili.
Yes.
I've learned something today. Awesome.
Yes.
Kiswahili.
So
okay.
we're not going to just find a Kiswahili facilitator without a client who wants to learn it. But when the demand is enough, obviously it will warrant for us to say like, oh, okay, 5 people have said they want to learn this language. But the thing that I have to emphasize is we're prioritizing African languages first. So we're not the people to come to if you want to learn German or French. There are people out there in the market who can probably facilitate you even better than us.
Awesome. That's why it's called Fast Fluency Africa.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Awesome stuff.
So we focus on African languages, African cultures. Not to say that in the future we won't accommodate those, because maybe we might want to do French that's spoken in the Congo, because obviously there are differences with the dialects. So
that's what I was about to ask you. So Peter, tell us, how did you get the concept of First Fluency Africa? Like, how did you get the concept of, or the idea of First Fluency Africa?
Okay, so the process that I went through, based on, because obviously when I first got into entrepreneurship, the first thing I did was, before I even started putting myself out there as an entrepreneur, so to speak, and I even today don't really consider myself as an entrepreneur. I really feel that's just a title. But it was a process of research.
Okay.
So the first thing I had to do was educate myself in the field and find out exactly what the different opportunities or options are. Because effectively it was a thing of me saying, I'd finished my leadership tenure at the university, and then now it was like, okay, I'm used to being busy, so what's the next project going to be? So having thought about what the next project was going to be, I said, okay, entrepreneurship looks like something I'll be interested in doing. But let's just spend a good 8-9 months just immersing myself in the material that's available out there. Let's also read other people's stories and figure out, if I go down this journey, what path am I going to take? So that was the first crucial step that I took, that I didn't just dive in. And then after spending that time immersing myself in the necessary materials that I looked into, I then went about the approach of identifying what my different capabilities are, what are the different things that I'm good at are, and what are finally the specific interests and passions that I have. So in that, effectively what I've just outlined is you asking yourself, what are your strengths? So strengths are things that are your positive qualities.
Yeah.
So things that you might be, some people might tell you that you're a good listener. Some people might say that you're very organized, right? And then looking at your capabilities, so those are your actual skills, things that you might put on your CV, that you can do this task. So that means you have the skill. You can speak this language, for example, right? And then beyond that, it's your actual interests and your passions and things that if you are on holiday, or let's say even recently over Easter holiday, what were you spending your time doing? You had free time. Those are your passions, because it's not like you're doing work there. So once you've charted that out, you start to look at how you can amalgamate those different quadrants, so to speak, or criteria, and then come up with different ideas. So for example, personally, I've always had an interest in languages. I've always felt really connected with languages and wanting to expose myself to at least understand different cultures and things of that nature. And then in terms of my capabilities, I looked at myself and I said that, but I'm pretty good at organizing and strategizing certain things. So I think I could come up with a structured way to come up with a program for languages. So it was looking at it from that perspective, and also the previous leadership experience that I had given me managerial experience with working with people and things of that nature. So that was one of the ideas that I had. So I did that process and came up with a lot of different ideas. And I don't want to talk too deep into the nitty-gritties, but then once you have those ideas, what you do is you now ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, is anyone currently willing to pay for what you're offering? And number 2, is anyone currently willing and capable to pay for what you're offering? Because you find that there's a lot of people who want something, but they just don't have the means to pay for it. So you don't want to come up with ideas that people would love, but then people won't have the money to pay for it. And at the same time, you don't want to come up with something that people might be capable because they have the actual funds to pay for it, but no one is actually interested in that idea. It's just something that you personally care about so much because you focus too much on the passion. So those are sort of like different like checklists that you do for yourself to actually just validate your idea before you go out and you spend and invest so much time on an idea that if you had just taken 2 seconds to actually think about, would have told you that this is not going to be a viable idea. So you take those extra steps to do the research and to actually ask yourself, is this something that I just care about a lot, or is this something that I can fulfill and I can pull off, but there's also a market waiting for this? Because at the end of the day, a lot of people have a perspective that I consider what I call a me-centric perspective, where they just focus on themselves, but they forget to have a value-added mentality where you focus on the actual end user and the consumer. Because when you have a value-added mentality, you focus on what do people want? Let me first find out what people want and then take that information and marry it with the things that I'm good at, the things that I care about, and the skills that I have, and come up with an idea specifically tailored for what people told me about.
Okay.
People have the mentality where they just want to build it and somehow people will come. But that's very selfish if you think about it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So basically that's how you came up with the idea.
Going through that process.
Okay. So Peter, tell us what do you seek to achieve with Fast Fluency Africa?
Okay, so our main long-term mission is that by 2030, we want to be offering at least one unique African nation language. Okay. So what I mean by that is we obviously have East African countries that all speak Kiswahili.
Yeah.
There are different languages that are only spoken in one or two of those countries.
Yeah.
So at least representative of the whole continent, in that if people want to learn how to write in a certain language or how to speak a certain language or how to read a certain language, they can come to us for that. Okay. Because once we focus on that, it will segue into the cultural aspects of all those different languages.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And how do you advertise this great concept? How do you advertise Fast Fluency Africa?
Well, everything that we do is based on a very direct method.
Yeah.
So actually going to the source and going to actual individuals and saying, look, we offer this service. Would you be interested? And marketing directly to our target market. And then from another perspective, there's additional content marketing that we do. So we obviously use social media as channels, but then we create a lot of content that's relevant to our target market. So for example, we'll post different phrases in a different African language for the different people who are trying to learn from a passive perspective.
Okay.
We have a newsletter that we circulate that keeps people updated, like I spoke about earlier with the different events that we have on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so things of that nature, that really helps get the word out because like I said, our focus is the fun.
Yeah, it's the fun. All right, interesting, Peter. So to what do you attribute your success?
Well, it's nice that you consider that we're successful. Let's start there.
Of course, Ben.
Well, I'd say it's a mixture of two things more than anything. Number one, it's that research that I keep talking about. So actually putting in the work and finding out before you step out what is likely to work. So putting in that effort to actually know what your clients want. And number two, it's also having the right people on board.
Yeah.
Because you could have the best plan and mission, but if you have the wrong people to execute, either way, it's not gonna work out. So having a proper plan in place based on actual data that you went out and researched and putting in that work, and then having the right people who can execute it.
Awesome, interesting, Peter. And tell me, what are your goals?
I'd say with the business, the real goal is to make language and African culture accessible, because I genuinely believe very strongly that we have a tendency as Africans to let other people tell our stories. So you'll find that whether it's different movies that are made and they're telling African stories, it's Western production companies that do it. But I feel like we have a rich culture and a rich history that is often not promoted as much. You see what I'm saying? And the same way you find that in the East, China can create their own companies like Alibaba. So it's the equivalent of Amazon for the East. But in Africa, we don't have that. We don't have our own Ubers to an extent. We don't have our own Alibabas or Amazons. We don't have our own WeChat, for example. But I think the starting point to get Africans to do that is creating an awareness of the language and the culture, because the language is what connects us and the culture is what differentiates us from the rest of the world. So the more we can make that accessible to people, the more we can start redefining and ironing out an identity that unifies us as Africans. So I want to use this as a platform to create that type of unification amongst us. At least that's the overall end goal of the business itself. Because to a large extent, I honestly want languages to be so accessible that we don't even charge for it. That it's second nature for you to learn any African language. That would be amazing, right? So now on a personal level, I think more than anything, I just really enjoy creating things. So at this moment in time, I'm just really enjoying the journey and learning every day something new and seeing my efforts actually materialize into something. So I'm just going along for the ride for now. and then we'll just see where it ends up.
Awesome. That's great. All right, Peter, that's very interesting. So now here's the topic of the day. Has the thought of quitting ever crossed your mind and you were like, you know what? That's in business. As you have started the journey as a startup entrepreneur, has that thought, ever crossed your mind that, you know what? As you face the challenges in business and you felt like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I just want to quit and go back, maybe start looking for a job or carry on with my studies. Has that ever have you ever come across that?
I wouldn't say quitting entrepreneurship as a whole. I wouldn't answer the yes to that.
Okay.
Because especially going back to how I explained the research focused approach that I take, that generally I'm a very risk averse person.
Okay.
And I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs are also very risk averse. We're the type of people who won't bank everything on something unless we know it's a sure one. So we know guaranteed we're very likely going to succeed. So when you do that and you hedge your bets like that, and you create contingencies to make sure that you're less likely to fail, you're less likely to enter scenarios where you feel like quitting. And also in that research that you do, having a plan, it's in that approach that I said I had multiple ideas that I came up with. So when I first started, obviously Fast Fluency Africa wasn't my first idea that I pursued. I would go through that list and I would go through the first one and do it until it works out. But when it stops working out, it's not something that, oh wow, now I'm having to start from scratch again. Because there's certain experience and skills that I've learned going through that process that will carry over to the next idea. And as opposed to a lot of people who didn't do the research, who feel like they're experiencing headless chicken syndrome and they're just all over the place. They feel like they're doing this today and that tomorrow. With a structured plan, you just say, okay, that didn't work out, next. And that's literally the iterative process that's gotten us up to this point. And what a lot of people don't realize is that because they focus too much on what we call the trappings of power and the trappings of success. So where it's like, you want to have the title of entrepreneur, or you want to have the imagery or the tangibles that are associated with being a successful entrepreneur. So you find a lot of people, not to talk down on them, but a lot of people complain about them on social media. So the Forex traders, the ones that make you feel bad if you're sleeping and you're not grinding 24/7, 365, because they want to appear as if they're entrepreneurs. When you have that mentality, that goes back to that me-centricism that I was talking about, where it's not really about adding value and you're more focused about your image. So when you're focused about your image, obviously you're going to want to quit when things aren't working out, because it's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not living up to the image that I've been putting out to other people. So you have an internal crisis. But when you're doing it for the right reasons and you're actually trying to add value to people's lives and you're actually trying to create solutions for problems that people have, it doesn't feel that way because it's merely taking every day as a lesson. So when you find out that, oh, this client didn't necessarily want this product like this, you don't feel rejected. You just feel like, oh, okay, let me get more information. Let me go back to the lab and let me rework what I was working on. And I'll just come back to you and then I'll ask you to that. Because a lot of people also struggle with being too salesy. But when you're actually genuinely concerned about adding value to your clients, they're going to want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So when you take it from that perspective, it's difficult for you to feel like quitting, because it's not like, I need to have this amount of money in my bank account. I need to be driving this car. It's like every single day when I interact with my clients, I'm adding value to their lives. I look forward to that.
That's interesting. But are you really sure that that thought has never crossed your mind? Because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I go through challenges of of businesses, admin stuff, finance, each and every day. I mean, I'm in this journey, and the thought has actually crossed my mind, and that's what I wanted to know, because I mean, you find people who say they felt like quitting because they couldn't find investors, people to invest in their dreams, in their business, in their ideas. So they gave up on the dream because of funds, because of whatever challenges they were facing in the business. So that's what I wanted to know. That are you sure that thought has never crossed your mind?
Okay, so to go deeper and to also clarify and double down on me saying no, that thought hasn't crossed my mind. Like I said, entrepreneurship as a whole, definitely never. But like I said, I had different lists of ideas that I had. So for me to get to the point where I'm at now, I had to decide that, okay, this idea was working, but maybe it requires too much work for me. and it's not feasible for me to get to the extent that I want to get to pushing this. So I try the next idea. But entrepreneurship as a whole, definitely not. And to also justify why I feel that way and why I've always felt that way, is because once again, in as much as you may say some people might feel like they have to quit because of funding, they have to quit because of maybe it's too much time, that goes back to the research. When you're coming up with ideas, and these are supposed to be business ideas, if you don't have the funding and you don't have a surefire way plan of securing the funding, and your business concept is contingent on having that funding, then why would you pursue that idea? It's like you're disqualifying yourself even before you start. You see what I'm saying?
But now, wait. So are you saying that if I do research about, whatever idea that I have, and I find out that, it's going to need income. So are you saying I shouldn't go ahead with that idea and I shouldn't, find other means or be, resilient and just have that mentality to say, either or, I'm going to make sure that this is actually going to work?
Here's the honest truth, in my opinion. Not every business was meant to be created. And not every business idea was meant to be run by every single person, if that makes sense. So it might be you might have the wrong idea, or it might be that it's the wrong idea for you. So it depends on the scenarios. But the thing is, the problem that people have is they invest too much of their own ego into their business idea. That's why even a lot of people probably hearing me talking about how, I had this idea, I realized it's not working out to the extent that I want, disregarded it, went to the next one, and the next one, right? But when people invest their ego into the idea too much, and they have that me-centric perspective, they can't let go of an idea because they feel that if the business idea failed, then they failed. But why would you want to let your self-worth be determined on an idea that's supposed to be a learning experience for you? Why is that material idea not particularly working out at the time determinant of your value as an individual? Do you see what I'm saying? So in having that perspective, I'm saying you need to focus on, like I keep going back to, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what skills you actually have. And then ask yourself whether people are willing to pay for this. Are people capable of paying for it? If you can't answer those three questions in terms of capabilities, what you're good at, what you like, what you're interested in, and whether people are willing and capable to pay for it, then you're not going to have a basic business model. Because the basic business model asks you what? Who's going to pay for it? What are you selling them? Do you see what I'm saying? So if you can't overcome that first loophole, so to speak, or that first hurdle, then you're not going to be successful. But that shouldn't be something that deters you from it. That should be something that's liberating. Because you need to look at it from a different perspective. That, so I can come up with as many ideas as I want, follow these steps, and eventually it'll work out. You see what I mean? So when you stop focusing on the trappings of power and you just let this thing be an organic experience that you go through, and you understand it's a learning experience, and you're not supposed to be 100% professional overnight. Have you ever heard of someone who started gymming and immediately in the first week they reached their gymming goals? Whether they wanted to lose weight, whether they wanted to bulk up, or whatever the case is. And why do we have that unrealistic expectation of entrepreneurs? Why is that there? That just because you started entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is a skill, overnight you must be raking in millions. Why is that the case?
Of course, that's not the idea.
When your child is trying to learn how to ride a bike, do you admonish them for falling off on the first time?
No, of course.
So I'm just saying people need to just treat themselves better. You know what I'm saying? Like, give themselves enough room to actually fail forward, as opposed to mellowing in the anticipation and the expectations of being an entrepreneur in this day and age. Rather focus on just learning and experimenting, because it's an opportunity as much as it is difficult because you have to put in work.
So in a nutshell, you're saying entrepreneurship is also a learning, tool.
Yes.
Because in the journey you are learning things that you never knew about. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting, and that's very true, by the way. What is so unique about Fast Fluency Africa? I'm sure there are a lot of companies that offer the same services as Fast Fluency Africa. So we want to know, what is so unique about Fast Fluency Africa? Why should I, as Priscilla, go and ask, for your services?
It all goes back to our fun aspect. The fact that we are the ones saying that we're not trying to make this another task in your daily routine. This is something that you look forward to, for you to either let off steam, for you to just unwind, for you to just have an experience. More than anything, we're saying we want to give you a curated cultural extravaganza experience that once you go through that journey, you have the added benefit of understanding a language, the added benefit of being introduced to a community of individuals, the added benefit of having native mother tongue speakers that you've also added into your network that can give you not just a technical academic explanation of the language, but a personal narrative perspective of, okay, this term is used in these contexts, and the origin of this particular term is maybe this folktale or maybe this proverb. Do you see what I mean? So it becomes a community and an environment of just like-minded individuals who have similar goals and who are also all passionate about African culture and African languages. Because the thing that I love the most about having the cultural cornerstone in that is the culture is a cornerstone to social change. Because if you can understand the culture of people, then you can break through in terms of creating connection and community amongst them. Because the more you can expose people to how our different cultural practices have overlap, so to speak, the more we start to see each other as more of the same people and more of the same community. You see what I mean?
Yeah. What has been your satisfying moments ever since you started your entrepreneurial journey and, with Fast Fluency Africa?
Okay. I wouldn't say there's been a unique one with Fast Fluency Africa, but I've experienced the same type of moment before, but I want to talk about the first time I experienced it. Okay. So the satisfying moment for me was when I first started out in entrepreneurship back in 2017. It was the first actual paying client that I secured. So it was like a moment of validation in the sense that it was like, wow, I can actually do this. Like someone paid me their hard-earned money for some service that I came up with, and they felt like they got what they wanted from it. And just going through that, it was eye-opening. It was sort of like, you know how in The Matrix, the first one, when Neo finally sees.
Exactly. I remember.
So it was kind of that eye-opening epiphany situation where it was like, oh wow, because the only regret I had at that moment was, why didn't I start doing this 5, 6, 10 years ago?
That's okay, Peter. So I wanted to know, what tricks have you discovered that keep you focused and productive on your busy schedule?
Well, I don't really like the term tricks because that just kind of has an underlying assumption that there's these little tactics that if you just apply here and there, then suddenly there'll be like shape and form and structure to your busy schedule. But like more than anything, it's focusing on the big things. So it's as opposed to trying to do every little thing that you think is the most important, like prioritizing and saying, how can we focus on the largest priority? So there's a concept or this idea which talks about focusing on what they call rocks. So rocks comes from the analogy that if you have a group of rocks, some pebbles and some sand, and you have a jar, and you want to fill up the jar with all of those things. If you want to fill up the jar properly, you need to start with the rocks first, then the pebbles, then the sand. So if you take care of the big things first, the small things will effectively get taken care of. So it's having that focus. And then once you focus on that on a consistent basis, then everything takes care of itself. Because once you do that, you start to create a rhythm for yourself. Because what's also very difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs that I know, and even myself included to an extent, is that entrepreneurship is difficult psychologically for a number of reasons. But another aspect is the lack of set structures. So for example, when you go to a corporate job, there are certain structures that are already in place. But when you're an entrepreneur, you have to create those structures yourself. So you don't have someone who's going to tell you, this is the project you're working on, this is your deadline. You have to set that for yourself. So that requires some level of discipline. But once you start to focus on those rocks, and then you start to set up those structures around those rocks, that's when you now have that proper rhythm that you can follow to. Because you can say, oh, okay, I know I'm working on this big thing. So I can start in the morning working on this aspect. Then in the afternoon, that aspect. Then in the evening, that aspect. But you're going back and digging on the same place that you started at the day before, and over time those rocks become pebbles, which become sand, and then you've accomplished your goals.
Wow. Nicely put. Okay. So Peter, for our viewers out there, for someone who wants to learn Venda, Shitonga, Tswana, and Afrikaans, or English for that fact, where can they find Fast Fluency Africa?
Okay, they can find us online at www.fastfluencyafrica.co.za, and they can also find us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The handle is at FastFluencyZA.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. And you mentioned something about finding you on WhatsApp?
Oh, the WhatsApp number, I'm sure you posted up.
Yes, I'm sure it's showing now on the screen. All the details are showing on the screen.
And then it's just open 24/7. If anyone has any inquiries, if people would like to be a part of some of our initiatives that we're doing and they just want to ask around, come through. We're always looking for more people to add to our great family and team.
Yeah.
So if you're talented as a creative, as a language that you actually speak and you want to facilitate that language, come hit us up.
So guys, you know where to find Fast Fluency Africa if you are interested in learning new languages, which is our South African languages. And in closing, Peter, as you know, the main objective for this channel, what advice would you give to, kids in school, unemployed graduates, or kids that are actually still studying? Because you yourself, you are still studying, but you've already started a business as well on the side. What piece of advice would you give to, kids, in terms of starting their own businesses and applying the knowledge that they have got from school into their daily lives? What piece of advice would you give to those people?
I think it starts with your motivation. And what I mean by that, it's why are you doing it? And that's a very deep existential question I can imagine for someone in grade 10 to be asking themselves.
Yeah.
But the sooner you start asking yourself that question in life, the sooner you have more clarity. Because I think a lot of people get caught up in the stereotypical dream, so to speak. So that stereotypical dream of what qualifies for you to say that I have arrived. So the white picket fence, the 2.5 kids, the stay-at-home wife for some people. Do you see what I'm saying? So that image of achieving it and success, you have to question yourself and ask yourself, is that what you consider success? Or do you have a different image? Because in the process, when you go through it, I can be honest, it's not going to be easy. But once you don't have your priorities and your motivational focuses in order, when you feel that, like you asked me multiple times, that you want to quit, if that conviction isn't strong enough, you just quit at a whim. It's the reason why any person who's had any other personal goal in life, whether it's losing weight or those other examples that I keep referring to, if they don't have the conviction, they're not going to follow through. So you need to know why you're doing it. And why I start by saying that is because, like I said before, a lot of people have the wrong motivation. They want the trappings of power. They want their Instagram to look a certain way. They want to have certain material objects so that they can finesse and flex and look like they're living a certain lifestyle to other people, as opposed to actually focusing on wanting to help people, wanting to actually develop yourself as an individual. Because for me personally, I don't have set ambitions to that extent that really drive me on a day-to-day. Because don't get me twisted, I'm not at any point admonishing wanting nice things. Everyone wants nice things because nice things are nice things.
Yes.
I'm just saying, don't make getting the nice things the only reason you want to do it and the main reason you want to do it. Rather focus on achieving a certain level or accomplishment or progress in your life as an individual, and then with the benefit of being able to get those nice things. Because what people miss is that they think that the destination is at the end, but the journey is the destination. So every day when I wake up, I feel like I've arrived.
Okay.
Because I'm working towards my dreams and my ambitions on a day-to-day basis.
Wow.
Because the whole purpose should be to set ridiculously unrealistic goals that you want to achieve with your life. And even if you don't accomplish them, when all said and done, you will have tried. And because you tried, you'll be so much better off than you were if you hadn't tried. So that's the advice I'll give people. Know why you're doing what you're doing. Don't go after the trappings of power. And do it for the sake of doing it. And make sure whatever you do, you're always adding value to other people's lives. If you do that, I honestly don't think you can go wrong.
Okay. Just to ask you the final question, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? There are people out there who want to start their own businesses, but they don't know, they don't have the know-how. And what advice would you give to those people who want to start their own businesses and they're sitting there with their own ideas? Someone who's sitting and saying, I do have this idea, but I just don't know who to approach. And, some people have this mentality to say, if I don't have money or I won't be able to start my own business. So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs or, college graduates that are unemployed currently sitting at home and they want to maybe, start a business, or they don't even have that mentality to say, hey, I can start a business. What advice and what would you say to those people?
Well, the most important thing is, cool, you have an idea, so what? Have you acted on it? Because the thing is, I could give the best advice or the worst advice, but if you don't act on it and you actually see how it works out for you in your life, then it's completely worthless. Because at the end of the day, we all have unique circumstances. There's access to this information online for free. You just have to look for it. If you're actually serious about something, you can pretty much find information for anything in this day and age because of the technological age that we live in.
Yeah.
So if you're serious about something, you will find the information. You will get that information.
Yeah,
right?
you will find it on the Connect to YouTube channel as well.
Right?
Yeah.
And so once you've established that you have the drive to actually do the research and actual hard work, beyond that, it's understanding that even though you have access to that information, not everything you find is going to be relevant for you. And that's the key part that a lot of people miss out on. They think if they just find one person who has all the answers, it's going to be like the secret sauce that they've been looking for. But no. That's not how it works. Entrepreneurship is an amalgamation of a multiplicity of skills.
Wow.
Because now you have sales skills that you need to master. You have HR skills you need to master.
Exactly.
There's marketing skills you need to master.
That's true.
There's just product design that you need to master. You see? So it's about getting a bit of the puzzle correct day by day until you start to see the big picture. But everyone has their own unique puzzle. That's why I said at the beginning, you need to ask yourself, what are you good at? What do you like? And what skills do you actually have? Because what's relevant for your business might not be relevant for me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The channels that we use to market might be different because of the different industries that we're in. So hence why I keep trying to personalize it by saying, what motivates you? Why are you doing it? And once you have that golden thread linked through everything that you're doing, that's when it's going to be easier, but it's not going to be a sure win. It's just having an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, who you're doing what you're doing for, and how you're doing it from your own perspective. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, Peter, thank you very much for coming and sharing your journey with us and telling us about Fast Fluency Africa. And I know for sure there's languages that I want to learn. So for sure, I'll be in touch with you to discuss, further details about that. But thank you very much for sharing all the information with our viewers for the Connect 2 channel. And I do hope that, they've learned something from you. And one of the things that I've actually realized that you are actually still a student, but you've already started a business and you are a startup entrepreneur. So it actually motivates other people out there to, go for it. Whatever idea it is that they have, they should go for it. Even if they're still studying or even if they're sitting at home with a degree, they should just go for it. I hope that, people could learn from you and the type of, adventure you went to, which is just, offering, services for people to learn different languages in South Africa, which is something that, the youth or some people in our days, we take for granted of, and for you, you were so creative, basically, with us and our viewers. Yes. You are still on the come up. We still on the come up. I'm still on the come up. Everyone is still on the come up. Yeah. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Okay. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Cheers. And well, we've come to the end of episode 3 of the Connect 2. And thank you very much for watching. And we do hope that this session was very insightful and that you've picked up something or grab something from today's conversation. And we look forward to seeing your comments below. And also, if you want to contact us, you can do so on 012-111-7420, or you can send us an email to connect2@eAfrica-Telecoms. The Connect2 YouTube channel is powered by eAfrica Telecoms. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.